Welcome to On Texas Football. Time for the breakdown. Bingham's Bourbon breakdown, actually. We're going to talk a lot about the Longhorns taking on the Vanderbilt Commodores this Saturday morning at 11 a.m. at DKR. Rod Babers, CJ Vogel. I'm Bobby Burton. We're here to talk a little football. Rod, I'm going to start with you. This Texas offense going up against a Vanderbilt defense that likes to make tackles behind the line of scrimmage. That's kind of their calling card. Create negative plays, get you behind the chains. Texas likely to have Matthew Caldwell as the starter. We'll get more information, obviously, from the injury report later tonight that Steve Sarkisian will release to the SEC. But, Rod, your initial take on this Texas offense going up against the Vanderbilt defense?
You're right about it. They like to wreak a lot of havoc. Top 20 in sacks and tackles for loss. They have, at this point, 21 sacks, also 54 tackles for loss. So they do create a lot of negative plays. I do think they are vulnerable in critical areas, though. When I look at them on third down, the third down defense ends in the mid-50s. Red zone defense for them, they're 51st and 60th in red zone defense and touchdown percentage allowed in the red zone. So I think that's where if Texas can get to those critical moments and give themselves favorable conditions, right? Third, medium, third, short in the red zone, I do think they can have some success there. But this is a defense that their rush defense is kind of where everything starts, and then they put you in some third and long situations, and they're able to create havoc. Also, one thing to look at, they force a lot of fumbles. They're top 10 in forced fumbles, actually, as well, and they got a lot of fumble luck. Texas doesn't have great fumble luck. Their fumble recovery rate, guys, is 77%. Their fumbles. Texas is around 35%. So they get whatever they're doing, they got good fumble recovery luck too. So that's also something to watch. But ultimately, you gotta really, if you're Texas, you gotta limit the negative plays against this group, and that's in pass protection, but that's also in the running game. Stand away from the negative plays that put you in third and long or second and long situations.
What about Texas generally on offense with Matthew Caldwell, Rod? How do you see Texas attacking Vanderbilt?
Matthew Caldwell might be better at RPOs than Arch. That's one of the things. Arch is not necessarily elite in the RPO game. I always like him in straight drop back. Maybe with Matthew Caldwell that he's a little bit better in the RPO situation. I like them to just get the quick passing game going. He seems to be relatively accurate. If I was Sark, kind of stay away from some of the deep vertical concepts early on, just to kind of see if he can get in a rhythm and get into a groove unless you have to go there. So I would stick with the screen game early. The RPO game, I think, will be open for Texas. If you get Cedric Baxter now, he's maybe taking off the pitch count away from him, and maybe now you can kind of unleash him and Trey Wisner. Be great if you could get a ground game going. I'm not actually expecting the ground game to be able to carry this offense because you haven't really done that. And this is one of the better rush defenses in the country. You got to be able, if you're Sark, to compensate for that, maybe with the quick passing game, the screen game, the running backs in the passing game, and be able to kind of use the passing game to open up some of the run.
Yeah, Ryan Wingo had a couple of passes that were just runs that ended up being big ones on Saturday against Mississippi State. CJ, your thoughts on Rod's comment about the Vanderbilt defense and the Texas offense?
Yeah, Rod, it's funny. It felt like you were reading some of my cheat sheet notes over here.
Great minds.
With the forced fumbles especially. That was one that, Texas has done a fine job, knocking on wood now, in terms of holding on to the rock, running the football. That's going to have to be a very high point of emphasis this weekend as well. What's really interesting is they create a lot of havoc with their edges, right? Corday Sidnor, you look at Miles Capers, these guys live in the backfield, yet it doesn't necessarily equate to a great pass defense. And I think that's really interesting because they got really talented pieces, yet they're 97th right now in passes allowed of 10 plus yards or more. And I know that Texas is dealing with a backup quarterback in Matthew Caldwell. And, it might be, easy to sit here and say, hey, Texas backup quarterback, they're going to try to establish the run. They're going to try to play time of possession, kind of go back and forth with Vanderbilt in terms of shortening the game. Then I go back to 2023 when Texas had Kansas State at home with Malik Murphy. And what did we see in that first quarter, in that first half especially? They were hucking the ball, Bobby. And so I wonder if that's something that Sark will lean back on. And, hey, given what we've seen of Matthew Caldwell so far with his throw to Ryan Wingo against Florida and obviously the RPO fade route to Emmett Mosley, maybe it's worth starting with that kind of approach. So that's going to be really interesting. But there is a lot of room to attack Vanderbilt vertically down the field or in that second level.
Interesting. You guys both feel like Texas, even with Matthew Caldwell, should be able to score some points here? Or is this like, what are y'all thinking? Not necessarily your overall score, but should Texas be able to reasonably move the ball on Saturday? Rod, what do you think?
I mean, honestly, it all depends on how hot Matthew Caldwell is, right? I think you're Sark, you really got to go into this game, and your feel of the game's got to be important as a play caller, and your connection with Matthew Caldwell, like the confidence that he has. Is it something that you can build on if you want to hit some of those vertical concepts downfield, or do you want to start with those kind of vertical concepts downfield? Like, you've seen him in practice. Is he hitting that kind of stuff in practice? Does he look really good against your defense, executing those kind of concepts? So I think a lot of this will be on Sark. Whether he can either get him in a rhythm, get him in a groove, and the feel for the game. That if Matthew Caldwell is hot, to ride the hot hand. Because I'm with CJ there. I don't necessarily think your best bet is going to be able to lean necessarily on the running game when it hasn't been consistent for you all season long.
CJ, you think they're going to be able to move the ball against Vandy with any consistency?
Yeah, this is going to have to be a game where Sark's really in his bag, I think. And maybe that's A.J. Milwee up in the box, giving Sark that, bird's eye view once again. But look, I don't, to Rod's point, I don't think Texas will be able to run effectively if they haven't been able to run against Kentucky or Mississippi State, two teams that were in the bottom, 3 or 4 of SEC rush defenses. Vanderbilt's much better. And they got guys that can create havoc and live behind the line of scrimmage, as we talked about. So maybe it's just as simple as getting C.J. Baxter off of that pitch count. But the thing that I'm going to be really interested in, how does that left guard position look in the run defense or in run offense? And how does DJ Campbell start firing off the ball again? Because he got dinged up against Mississippi State. Let's not forget that. What does that lower leg or ankle look like early on in the game?
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. We'll go over the defense, the Texas defense up against the Vanderbilt offense of Diego Pavia in just a moment. Rod, do me a favor, though, and tell folks about our sponsor, Ryan Bingham, over at Bingham's Bourbon.
Yes, and thank you to Ryan Bingham for being a part of the On Texas football family here. This is about Ryan Bingham and his journey to create the best bourbon in the great state of Texas, created by Grammy and Oscar-winning artist Ryan Bingham. For years, Ryan turned down offers to just put his name on any bottle of bourbon. No, instead, he insisted that he wanted a bourbon he could be proud of, one that stayed true to his Texas roots and where the music comes from. That's why he built Bingham's from the ground up, a Texas certified whiskey made with 100% Texas grown grains, distilled and aged in the searing Texas climate for an unmistakable flavor. From the hands of local Texas farmers to the barrel to the glass, every drop is a tribute to the land, the craft, and the people who shape it. Bingham's Bourbon, proof that Texas makes a damn good bourbon, available now across the great state of Texas. And you can find details at binghamspirits.com. That's binghamspirits.com.
I love how they call it Texas bourbon, or Texas straight bourbon whiskey. By the way, if you follow Ryan Bingham at all, he was actually in Nashville last night. He's coming up. He's going to be in Tulsa this weekend, and then he starts his Texas version of his tour. He'll be in Lubbock, Midland early in the week, and then he's in Austin next weekend on Friday night at Moody. Rod, I know you're going to be there, buddy.
That's right.
We'll see you. All right, let's go from here and talk about Diego Pavia, Cedric Alexander, the running back, the former Austin LBJ star, as well as maybe who is the best tight end in the country, Eli Stowers. CJ, how do you see Texas defending this Vanderbilt offense? Yeah,
this is a efficient Vanderbilt offense. They're second in the country in points per drive. I know that you start looking around, they don't have as many possessions as a number of other teams in that top 5, top 10 scoring offense, but look, they find ways to put points on the board on given drives, and that's really all that matters. What's interesting is they don't own time of possession. I know that they shorten games, but they're around 50th in the country at a time of possession, around 30 minutes, 45 seconds or so. So it's not like, they're playing at an academy pace like they were a year ago, right? But still, they don't turn the ball over often. and they stay ahead of the chains. I think that's the number one thing for me is, look, they're top 10 right now in sacks allowed. They're top 5 in tackles for loss allowed. And, Rod, of their 26 tackles for loss that they've allowed this year, they've only gone for about 59 total yards. So they're not losing big chunk yardage whenever teams find ways into the backfield. They fall forward. I think a large part of that is Diego Pavia. But the one thing that gives me a lot of confidence about Texas finding kind of bouncing back against Vanderbilt this weekend, we're going to see a lot of 12 personnel. And you tell me if Texas is more suited to play any team in the country with 12 personnel versus what they face in practice going all the way back to spring football, right? Texas defensively has seen a ton of 12 personnel every single day in practice. I think they're going to be well suited for it. I think they're going to be gap sound. And on top of that, they're going to know that this is a guy that they cannot let outside the pocket or beat them with their legs, something that they've been very good at as well. So I'm looking for a bounce back pretty heavily this weekend for the Texas defense.
That's interesting, Rod. Rod, you think Texas has the personnel to match Pavia? Because that's what I think. When you look at an Ethan Burke and a Colin Simmons and all those pass rushers, they should be able to theoretically keep him in the pocket, right?
Yeah, I think they have a lot of guys. It hurts a little not having Taft there, because then you could use more of your safeties as well to be spies. But they have a lot of guys. I mean, they have Ty Anthony Smith can be a spy. Of course, Anthony Hill. They've used Colin Simmons as a spy before. Trey Moore they've used in the spy role. They've seen Jelani McDonald as a spy. So you can mix it up who's going to be spy, but you're going to need one, because this guy is a bit of a magician. And when it comes to the scramble drill, people are probably tired of hearing me talk about the scramble drill because Arch is so good at it. This dude may be the best in the country at it, one of the best in the country at it. He's averaging over 9 yards per rush on scrambles. Overall. And I think in terms of sack avoidance, I believe his pressure to sack rate is around 8.9%. So I think the games, and his offensive line, they're okay, but I mean, they can be had by the Texas pass rush. I've even heard Jerry talk about that, but it's him. His sack avoidance is elite. And when he starts to scramble drill, they're really good in terms of his weapons on the outside, adjusting to that. Bringing up the tight ends, you said it, CJ, to piggyback on it. They're going to use a lot of 12 personnel. They got really good tight ends. Guys, the last 2 weeks, Texas has been eaten up by tight ends, all right? Kentucky used a lot of tight ends. Mississippi State, they had 19 total targets combined in the last 2 weeks, 2 tight ends, all right? And I believe 9 first downs caught by tight ends in the last 2 weeks. So Texas needs to watch that. They're targeting. What the beauty of it is, they bring in 12. Texas bring in more linebackers. Maybe they go 40 personnel. Maybe they go 3-4, and then they use the tight ends to target the linebackers in coverage.
Let me ask you this. I mean, yeah, is this a game maybe we see more Brad Spence, where you get more speed on the field and he plays a little bit more linebacker along with other? I mean, is that a possibility? I mean, he's got some experience dropping into coverage, or is this like I felt like against Mississippi State, and actually they did it. They actually took Leonga Lafau off the field in the fourth quarter and inserted Ty Anthony Smith because I think they just wanted more speed on the field.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you defend this? Is that similar to how you defend this Vanderbilt team, or is there, what do y'all think?
You know, it's kind of the age-old question of, do you sacrifice speed for size or size for speed? And, you know, against Vanderbilt, if you go light, you know, that's 12 personnel on the field that can beat you getting to the second level and running the football. Whereas if you go, you know, a little bit slower but have some more speed up there, they've got, obviously, Eli Stowers. And, look, Cole Spence is their second tight end. And, you know, he doesn't get a lot of love, only 9 targets on the year, 8 receptions, has gone for 130 yards. So about 16 yards a pop. That's where they're going to beat you, right? Is in the unsuspecting tight end looks. Maybe they get into 13 or 14 with a fullback in there. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be one of those chess matches, Bobby, where whatever Texas does, they're going to counter. And whatever Vanderbilt does, Texas will try to counter of their own. I love seeing Brad Spence on the field, to your point. And I think having him on one side with Colin Simmons on the other, I know that you sacrifice a little bit of your size up front on the edges, but that speed is undeniable. And their ability to create havoc combined is something that I think Texas is at its strongest when they're both on the field together.
Yeah. All right. We're going to talk a little special teams now. Texas is, I mean, they may have won the last 3 games in part, at least, because of special teams. There's no 2 ways about it. Ryan Niblett's on fire. Vanderbilt should not punt to Ryan Niblett. I hope they do, but they should not, right? You would think that Texas holds an edge here, but CJ and Rod, who do y'all think has the edge here in special teams at this point?
Well, I don't think we'll see a punt to Ryan Niblett. I say that because, one, who would punt to Ryan Niblett anymore? But two, Vanderbilt's only punted 17 times in 8 games. That's bottom 10 in the country in terms of amount of punts seen so far this year. On top of that, they're top 10 in average punting distance, north of 46 yards per punt. So they cover well. Last year, obviously, we saw their punter had a great impact on that game, seeing him in warmups. I was kind of amazed at how high he was able to get some of his punts to go. And I think that's going to carry on into this week as well. They've coached that up very well. And Ryan Niblett, it's been a hell of a ride. But unfortunately, brother, I just don't see you getting any more opportunities.
I wouldn't give him an opportunity, but hey, I'm different. What do you think?
Yeah, Larry did. I said it last week. I was like, his season was over, and I was wrong. He ended up saving the game again for Texas. I think now opposing coaches have learned their lesson. I'd rather take that short shank punt than punt to Ryan Niblett. That's a no-brainer to me. I'll take the shank punt. That's the trouble with it. At times, if you're trying to directionally punt away from him, you may end up shanking a punt or something like that. And I think right now coaches will take that all day, every day, and twice on Sunday instead of kicking the Niblett.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's certainly interesting. Mason Shipley, by the way, missed his first short field goal of the year on Saturday. So hopefully he comes back from that and has a better performance on this Saturday against Vanderbilt. All right, guys, predictions for this game. I'm going to start, and then TJ, I'll go to you. Then Rod, you can close it out. I'm going Texas 22, Vanderbilt 20. I know that's an odd score, and I don't know how they're going to get there. I really don't. I see Texas scoring 2 touchdowns and maybe a couple of field goals, and then trying to find their way to get an extra point here or there, whether they go for 2 on one opportunity or not. I've got Vanderbilt scoring 20. I think that this Vanderbilt team is really good and underappreciated, even though they're ranked top 10. They do a lot of things really well. I think Texas has some things that can really combat what Vanderbilt does well. I do think the defensive ends for Texas are awfully, awfully good. I think Anthony Hill is coming off maybe his best game as a Longhorn potentially. And if they can match up and keep Diego Pavia in the pocket, I think this is a game where Jelani McDonald, we're going to see what he's really made of. Grayson Littleton, those guys are going to be tested, particularly Littleton in the slot, because he may be lined up on those tight ends every so often, CJ and Rod. But there's something about it. Back at home at DKR for the first time in 42 days is a big piece of my thought process as well. They're coming off 2 big road wins, as well as the Red River rivalry game. Something about it just tells me Texas, even with Matthew Caldwell. CJ, what do you got?
Look, last week I gave Texas the nod in Starkville strictly because I believed in the defense. They ended up winning the game, but not because of the defense, right? 38 points. You could argue late in the game they found their rhythm, but I think I got the right answer by the wrong calculations is what I'm trying to say this week. I still think Texas is the better team here, even without Arch Manning at quarterback. There's going to have to be some extra juice because of playing at home, I would imagine. The one thing for me, Texas has to finally start quick. I don't know what the remedy is for starting quick, but against Power 5 teams this year, only 1 touchdown in the first quarter and then 0 touchdowns when playing with a lead. That's got to change. And this is a great opportunity to build a double-digit lead if possible, get Vanderbilt to play out of what their style is. I do like Texas in this game, but Bobby, I have a very similar score to you. I think it's going to be 24-20, 24-17 in that range. I'll stick with 24-17 just in the sense that, hey, maybe Vanderbilt's going into a little bit of a rut offensively of their own right now.
It's interesting, CJ. It's almost like Texas needs to create that killer instinct once they get ahead. Rob, what do you got?
Oh, man, this was tough. I do like the Texas defense matching up against that offense because it's not up-tempo. right? So, they're going to take their time. They're methodical. So I do think, and Texas has a lot of guys that can match up and spy Pavia. He's really good off schedule and scramble drills. And he's really good now straight drop back too. People haven't talked about that. Quick game. He's really improved and really accurate in that respect. Man, that Texas offense. I don't know. The best offense Texas has been in crisis situations when they're down like 2 touchdowns. And that's with Arch Manning's scrambling ability. And I don't know if Matthew Caldwell has that. We've only seen him a little bit. And I loved what I've seen so far. I got to tell you, I'll pick Texas because I don't really know which way to go. I don't feel good about it, though.
Oh, boy.
I don't feel confident in this pick. I'm very insecure about this pick. If you ask me later this week, I might change my mind about this thing. I'm going to go Texas. I'm going to go barely squeaking by, though. I'm going to go Texas 20, maybe 23, maybe 23 to 17.
Interesting. We're all around that same, area code, right? With our picks, we feel like Texas should get into the 20 somehow, some way. We don't know how. Maybe it's the crowd. Hey, the one thing I would tell you is the crowd can have an impact on this game.
Yep,
no doubt about it. And so,
but Matthew Caldwell,
loud, stay late.
Yeah, but Caldwell hasn't played. I mean, the crowd is rooting for him. But the crowd can turn and get you too if you're not playing well. If you haven't played strong, you know that, Bob. You've been there long enough to go, what? Caldwell 4-3 and outs in a row, and then all of a sudden the crowd don't like you no more. Asking, yelling KJ.
I think that what I mean is, Pavia, even though he's a very veteran quarterback, Vanderbilt's a different team away from home than they are at home.
That's true.
They really are. And so if Texas can make it a hostile environment, fans get there early, especially the students, get it popping, it could be a big deal. All right, one last thank you to our sponsor, Rod, if you'll do us the honors, Ryan Bingham and Bingham's Bourbon.
All right. Thank you to our friend Ryan Bingham for being a sponsor of On Texas Football. The Oscar-winning and also Grammy Award-winning artist, Ryan Bingham, worked for years. He turned down offers, actually, to put his name on a bottle. Instead, he wanted a bourbon he could be proud of, one that stayed true to his Texas roots and where the music comes from. That's why he built Bingham's from the ground up, a Texas-certified whiskey made with 100% Texas-grown grains, distilled and aged in the searing Texas climate for a bold, unmistakable flavor from the hands of local Texas farmers to the barrel to the glass. Every drop is a tribute to the land, the craft, and the people who shape it. Bingham's Bourbon, proof that Texas makes a damn good bourbon, available now across Texas. Find details at binghamspirits.com. That's binghamspirits.com.
Again, he's going to be in Austin at the Moody Coliseum, or Moody Center on November 7th, coming up this Friday. All right, CJ and Rob, before we let folks go, y'all have any final comments on this game that you want to put out there? CJ, I see you nodding your head. What do you got? Final thoughts?
Yeah, look, I know playing as a backup quarterback in your first start at Texas is going to be pressure enough. For Matthew Caldwell, the point of emphasis that you have to have against a team like Vanderbilt that lives in the backfield, got to hold on to the football. He had 7 fumbles at Troy when he was a starter a year ago. He gets loose with it. That's something that he cannot have playing on Saturday against Vanderbilt, because that will come back to bite Texas, especially with how efficient Vanderbilt is offensively on their own side.
Yeah, that's a good point. Again, we just brought up the fumble recovery rate. They're one of the best in the country recovering fumbles, in their top 10 in forcing fumbles. Nice nugget there, CJ. My last comment maybe it comes down to discipline. And each of these teams have actually shown to be very undisciplined. Yeah. If you look at penalty yards per game, Texas and Vandy both outside the top 100 in penalty yards per game, also outside the top 100 in total penalties this season. So maybe if Texas can get out of their own way, play some disciplined football, especially with your starting quarterback out, that may be all the difference in this matchup as well, considering it's going to be razor-thin margins in this game.
All right. My final thought is home game, first time in 42 days.
Whew.
They need to bring it, and I think they want to. I think the team is sensing that right now. They finally get to breathe, right? They get back at DKR friendly confines. I'm looking for a Texas win, and I don't know how it's going to come. I really don't, guys. It's kind of how I feel this season's gone for them, by hook or by crook, right? That's kind of how. All right, that'll do it for this version or this episode of The Breakdown, sponsored by Bingham's Bourbon, Texas straight bourbon whiskey. Thank you to Rod Babers. Thank you to CJ Vogel, as well as our producer, Matt Hutchison. We'll be back on a little bit later tonight with the live stream. Make sure you check us out around 7:15. You guys have a good day. Hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em.